Welcome to the weekend watch list here on Intercut, the weekly show going through all the movies and TV that people just can't cut away from. I'm your co-host Arturo Zurita, and joining me, there's so many ones for the Flash that I could use. I thought about the microwaving a baby, but I'm just gonna say he's gonna get here in a flash. Zachary Shevich, how you doing, man?
Not too bad, I don't know if this is something that I should have told you off stream, but I thought back to Ezra Miller's old Facebook name during that sequence with the babies, which I've told you about, which it's baby something that rhymes with their last name. I don't know
No.
if that was a thing from having mutual friends growing up. So I don't know, at least brought back some weird memories.
Dreams do come true.
But yeah, what a weird
Damn.
in a movie full of extremely weird moments and all sorts of like weird subtext and real world context that
Cra- Yeah. Look, I'm not gonna say that we're spoiling everything, but people were spoiling a lot of things. There is a mental health line in this movie that has to be the most ironic line of the year. Absolute most ironic line. But we will be covering The Flash. We will be covering. There's a new Pixar movie. I don't know if you heard. It's they look like Inside Out. It's in
Oh,
theaters. It's
yeah.
about a. I don't know if
It-
you've heard this. Is a Disney movie where a young girl is trying to follow up in her father's footsteps, but then chooses, get this, her own path. I'm sure you'd be able to throw a dart.
Amazing. Can they tell it with things that you wouldn't think could be humanoids, but are then interpreted to be that way?
Bro, I've never seen a movie so anti-racist, be the most racist, like, pro movie on why people should be segregated. We'll be talking about Elemental. We'll be talking about Black Mirror, whether it's good, whether it's not. Should you stream the show people are already streaming? As well as some Tribeca picks, because Tribeca has wrapped up. There is a lot of award
Kind of.
winners.
Kind of.
Exactly. You were telling me that anything that won will be streaming?
Of Yeah, so they do this Tribeca at home thing, which is particularly cool, and I think maybe is a
That's cool.
path that other festivals could emulate in the future. In that, from today, June 19th through July 2nd, so I guess you got 2 weeks to do it.
Mm.
They make all the award winners available. You can buy a $50 pass to watch them virtually. I think there's some also non-award winners that are available too. So even if you can't be here in the New York area, you can still catch some of the best movies that Tribeca had to offer. And it's helpful to have them select the best ones for you, because sometimes you're weeding through the mediocre in order to find the
Yeah.
gems at a festival.
That's what we do for a living here. So we'll even have some more weeding that we're gonna get through. For what
Exactly.
our personal picks are between the features, the documentaries, and even some hybrids. Because Tribeca is all about the hybrids now. They're no
Yeah.
longer a film festival; they're a story festival. But Zach, so far we have a pretty steady week of movies that we've been dealing with. Now that it is summer, it is not gonna hold up. Any movie stories you've got from your trip to the cinema, to the multiplex this week so far?
Trying to think. I mean, uh, you know, other than all the people who just still haven't learned phone etiquette despite going to the movies over and over again. Oh, you know what? I
There
do
ain't no
have
way.
one story from
Oh,
the AMC. The best thing about going to a crowded screening at the AMC in New York is that you do get the Nicole Kidman fans coming out and quoting along to the welcome to the movies thing she's doing, and there's a nice round of applause as that wrapped up before my screening of Asteroid City. But as
ooh.
people were applauding for the Nicole Kidman ad, one guy let out a boo, and then the people in front of me said, like, that's honestly almost homophobic.
But by the AMC, you're talking Lincoln Square, right? Because that's the.
Yes,
Okay, gotcha.
exactly.
I got to experience that when we went to go see Smile. They damn near salute for for Nicole Kidman. That's funny. Well, she extended her contract, so I'm sure the
Yeah,
reign will continue. You know what?
heartbreak will continue to feel good in a place like this.
They are right on Pride Month.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
exactly. It's rude.
Ridiculous. Oh man, I found it interesting that leading up to a lot of the screenings that we were having, every person who wanted to see The Flash saw it weeks before the movie even came out. I think people
Yeah.
have already discussing this online, but everyone's like, "Why did it bomb? Why did it bomb?" Everybody who wanted to see The Flash got to see a version of it. You should be questioning, why none of them wanted to see it again. It has nothing to do with seeing it early. Fans should still show up. They ran the opposite way once it came out in theaters, and it's also weird noting that we've had this like kind of trend with movies, specifically with The Flash, where they released it in parts. Like people did not have the ending that now everybody knows about. There was also after credits that were still not put in place, and it's almost like this confusing trend of why even release a movie if it's not ready.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was also the other aspect of it on Twitter. I don't know if you saw this. Obviously, leaks are going to happen, and people were posting them galore. And when they were posting all of these leaks, WB was copywriting every single image to the point that there was that Spider-Man image that was fake that they wouldn't even own because they're not Sony, and they copyright that too. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I wanted to hold out for the weekend. You know, I don't have the privilege to be able to upload. I can barely upload trailers, much less cam footage. So I've just been waiting for things to hone down. WB definitely did not want people to spread things.
Well, I did feel like there was an unusual rush to get clips from the ending or like big cameo moments online, and part of that is
It was crazy.
like you were talking about, that strategy of showing it to people months in advance and weeks in advance and getting all the big DC fans a chance to hype the movie up online. That I think, you know, and Stephen King and even a little Tom Cruise, who
Yeah.
got a weird shout out during
Shout
the movie
out.
that we could.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just interesting that like, you know, I heard about certain cameos, and even if I'm not somebody who's necessarily like that excited for the cameo moments, the way certain ones were being discussed, it made me like invested in finding it out. So I'm like, weeks before this movie is even available to me, spoiling myself. And I don't know, I wonder how much of that nature of like letting people talk about it, making that kind of the big selling point of the movie, and a thing that is easily digestible through cam footage on Twitter, leads to the movie doing worse than Black Adam did at the box office.
Here's the thing. Has Spider-Verse not leaked completely online? All those clips that you're seeing? So my question, right, as someone who also likes talking explainers and spoilers, right, if you let me, if you click the video, Twitter's completely different because, you know, you just get hit with it.
Yeah.
There is an aspect of it where that didn't hurt Spider-Verse. My brother, who never goes to the theaters to watch animated movie, was like, hey, should I be going to the theater to go watch this animated movie? Like, even he was intrigued to go see it because of the talk that had. So the fact that spoilers didn't hurt that one. Hell, Alina was showing me, Miller or Lord, one of them was retweeting, like it had the slots, the cam footage slots, just because someone had noted an Easter egg, and like they were cool with it because it wasn't hurting the movie.
Right.
I think
well, when your movie's that good.
Exactly. When people are spoiling things and it's not a copyright issue, but hey, no, this is actually really bad, and you're kind of showcasing the world immediately before they buy a ticket that it's terrible, the blame's on the content there. The blame's on the movie itself. But with that, let's discuss that first movie that we have here that, like, you had right there in the numbers. That's atrocious, dude. I cannot believe that. The worst box office that I have seen in a minute. The Flash. I keep calling this a Batman movie, and I've seen people get really upset because they're like, this is a Flash movie through and through. Zach, do you remember the other Flash that appears in the movie besides Ezra?
No.
Exactly. Can you name all Superman? Can you name all the Batman? Boy, there are so many cameos for everybody else but the Flash.
Exactly.
Mind you, there's a little bit of spoilers that you can discuss there because there's an after credit scenes where they're deciding which characters may continue to stay in this James Gunn universe and which characters may not, by letting you know, hey, in every universe, some of these actors are like Logan. It's always going to be the same actor playing them. Zach, let me know, as the superhero aficionado of the Intercut podcast, how did you feel of the long-awaited The Flash?
You know, I do think that there's a quality to the film that makes it pretty watchable. I think it's decently entertaining. I didn't have a bad time at the film the way that I did have a bad time with some other superhero movies recently. Like, I think I did enjoy seeing it more than like Quantumanium, for example. More than even Black Adam, I would say personally. There are just elements to The Flash that I ultimately find so much more distasteful than anything that happens in either of those two movies. And like, I don't need to reiterate the arguments about like using dead actors but through like CGI recreations that are grotesque and horribly rendered.
No, but
I don't
the
think we.
family, the family chose, the family sent off.
Yeah, so then it's perfectly ethical and not weird at all, and not something that I should feel conflicted about when like 5 people in the theater applaud it happening. Like, I don't know. I just, all of that aside, I do think there's a quality to the movie that is kind of like underwhelming in like retrospect, or in like thinking it through. Like, I feel like it all builds to this moment that is essentially just like a wipe the slate clean, nothing really mattered, nothing really
Yes.
changed thing, that it's so inconsequential. And even the action of the movie, I felt like it's building to this big Zod fight. I feel like I can say that because
Yeah, yeah,
it's out there in all the clips, right? And
yeah.
it feels like that should be the middle point of the movie, but it's kind of the
Yes.
ending. It feels curtailed, it feels cut off, and the big thing that it builds to is this pretty like cheap, you know, IP exploitation that relies on you having watched a Kevin Smith talk at some point on YouTube. Like, I don't know, it just feels like the rewards for this movie are not that rewarding, not that satisfying, not that fulfilling, other than that like chasing the high of intersecting all these different celebrities, you know?
Yeah, it's a movie where Barry Allen has to go back in time to save his mom because he
Yes.
realizes like, well, I could run really fast, and out of all of the things he could have done to help his mom, he chose like what would have been number 9 for me personally in the way that I would have run things.
Right.
Uh, Obviously, it sets up this chain reaction where you get multiverses. I don't know how you feel about this, Zach, but I'm getting tired that I can't count in one hand how many times I have sat at the multiplex to hear multiverses explained to me. It is
Mm-hmm.
getting ridiculous. But
Mm-hmm.
it's never a true multiverse. It's always whatever Warner Brothers kind of needs it to be. And we got
Yeah.
Michael Keaton as a big, big Batman fan. I like massive
Is
Batman
Michael
fan.
Keaton your guy? I don't know who your favorite Batman is actually.
I mean, they're all to me like that's the thing about the
There's no
Batman
bad one.
character. There's no bad one in my eyes, even the bat nipples. But to me, it's either going to be Christian Bale or it's going to be Keaton. I have that fondness for Keaton. I find it really weird, and I've said this with my '80s talk, and now we're in the '90s fully. Right, bro? You will
The
not
90s
find
nostalgia.
exactly. You will not find someone who is loving Keaton's portrayal unless they're an old head. I'm sorry to say it. Like every
Mm-hmm.
single person who is not young is not vibing with, like they don't care for it, and it just feels so weird. You obviously were referencing the cameos that happened during the climax of the movie, I guess if you want to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a carousel of like, do you remember this person? They don't even need to speak. Zach, I wish I had the picture
Even the
ready
way
right
it's
here.
presented looks like a interstitial at the Oscars or something.
It feels like like the DC con over here. I'm like at Comic Con being presented for who the new people are going to be. When they present the Batmobile, and they like, oh, I got it right here. When they pull up with this Batmobile, they're like, "Look, the Batmobile. The wheels will not move. We will not get in this vehicle at all." That is exactly what they do with the cameos. They are just
Yeah.
props. And to me,
Yeah.
you could talk about all the moral stuff in it. You could talk about what it means. On its own, it just looks terrible. There is
Awful.
there is some that are based off test footage that never got to be seen. I mean, the director spoiled one. I'm not gonna get that deep into it, but I'm sure if you're watching
Yeah.
this by this time, you know. How does that test footage that we never got, shot in like DV cam, look better than what's in cinemas right now? It's a failure in so many ways. Knowing how much this movie cost, knowing how delayed this movie was, and how you were pointing it out, it's white out. This is not a movie. This is
Mm-hmm.
something that was either going. It's almost meta in the sense this was either going to spawn off and create all of these multiverses for the DC universe,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It's
Because if
IP
we were
management, the movie.
literally, and somehow something that can create everything. James Gunn's a genius and can make it undo all of it. The reason Michael Keaton's in this movie is because do you remember Michael Keaton was supposed to be in the Batgirl movie?
Yeah.
By canceling the Batgirl movie, you're kind of just wrapping this up right here and going like, yeah, how can we put a pin on it? Oh yeah, we'll reshoot multiple endings to this movie until we decide who's going to be in charge, where we're going to take this. And you remember how they released Clue with different endings?
Yeah.
I feel like that's how we witnessed this movie. We
Yeah.
did not know what it was going to be, and that's why I was mentioning earlier that fans and critics who saw early cuts of the movie were missing parts of the movie because they weren't sure what it was going to be.
They were also told that the VFX were unfinished, which, like, LOL.
They still
they still unfinished.
They still aren't finished. It's bad, dude. I came out of it disgusted, but also feeling atrocious for myself because I'm a fan of these things, right?
Yeah.
They're dangling our nostalgia in our faces, but it's like I can't buy it. It feels fake. It feels forced. It feels like the movie is telling you exactly what it's selling. Don't be attached to these characters. You cannot change the past. Don't deal with these things. Come to the theater to watch Michael Keaton in Hispanics again. Like, I don't get it, man. It failed on multiple levels, and it just feels like an out for the one and only Batfleck. He looks like the only person who had fun in this movie because I think he knows it's done. So
I love that in that Hollywood Reporter interview, he's like, I feel like I finally nailed the character. I agree with him. He kind of was good in this movie, in this short bit. Yeah.
Do you like Andy Muschietti?
I mean, I think I liked the It movies. I don't know. I mean, not like that much, but I do feel like they were well directed. I don't really get a sense that I don't feel like he had like a great handle on these movies particularly, or this movie at least. And now there's word that he's getting the Batman franchise after this. And, I mean, like, you know, a lot of the Batman stuff was pretty good in this, but it's not the kind of like sure hand at the wheel that I feel like a lot of the previous people who got that chance are, if that makes any sense.
Agreed.
Well, I want to back up for a quick second, though, because I feel like we are being very negative on this movie that, like, I just said, like, I was mostly entertained by, even if it was like an empty type of entertainment. And you gave it like a mildly positive review. Like, you found it entertaining. But I feel like this is sort of the opposite of the type of movie that we talk about on the podcast quite a bit, in that a lot of times we talk about movies that are slow, that you have to have patience with, that might not be the most fun to sit in the theater and watch, but then you watch them and you like have this meal to chew over, and they grow in your head as you think it over and over. This, it goes down easy. You know, it's perfectly fine to sit there and watch, but I just don't like thinking back on moments of it, thinking back on different choices they made. It just makes me think of it worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I think a big comparison would be No Way Home, right? I think both of these movies, The Flash and No Way Home, are terrible when it comes to multiverses. They both do that thing of like endless possibilities. Only the characters you knew from the 2000s and 1990s, right? It's this weird mix of it not feeling organic to the story, but to nostalgia, like we're saying.
Yeah.
That said, No Way Home has moments that really shine, right? There are rescues that are made by certain characters. There's a rooftop sequence between characters that, you know, they connect because of their trauma. There's a lot of beauty in that. Even in Spider-Verse, there's just really good things going with it. It feels like shopping at a comic book store, and you have a blast seeing everything, but you're not reading a damn thing.
Right.
I think you had said empty calories. It's completely empty calories. But it's not the worst thing it could have been. It's just frustrating.
Potato chips taste good.
You have all this potential, and this is what you guys came up with?
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's
the weirdest thing to me is that
the
weirdest thing to me is that I thought Ezra was like actually pretty good in this film.
They were great, bro.
Yeah.
Where was this? Also because there's a part of it where because Barry is looking at his past self, he's judging how annoying he was in the previous movies. I think that's perfect growth.
Yeah.
Ezra, they're not going through that, but you know that's again the irony in the movie. You can separate it. You can't. I will say one thing: it is so funny to see a bunch of like people talking about the movie, going, "We're separating the art from the art." No, we're separating the art from the artist, and I need to cover this movie for the themes. Ain't the theme to stop? No one asked you to stop the video to remind us that you're separating the art from the artist. Just do it, bro. Because at that point, it goes against the themes.
Yeah. Hey, so you're the person who's much more invested in Batman than most people I know.
They're
So
going to say the Ezra investigation. Yes.
that too. We're trying to get to the bottom of it, but
Did you hear WB reportedly, allegedly, supposedly was buying old Twitter accounts? I'm gonna have to send you the
no.
thread in
Oh
order to
no.
pretend like it was an organic fan who overly broke down why they're not guilty. I'll have to send that to you later, but
Oh
go
man.
ahead.
I was just going to ask the question you asked me, and what do you think about Muschietti and their potential future as the director of whatever Batman movie comes next?
Muschietti, like Nolan and Snyder, has a dual partnership with his wife,
Hmm.
Barbara. So they've always been working on these projects together, and I like their sense of humor because it's really dark. When you ask them, they think both It movies are comedies, which is really twisted and explains the baby shower scene.
Yeah.
I think going in a brand new direction without all this baggage is perfect for this. I feel like he played game. He knew that this movie was going to go one of two ways, and it kept being molded. I think he's. It sounds rude to say, but I think he's really good at working within a studio. I think okay,
He's
that's
a
a nice way to
good
say it.
company, man. Yeah.
There you go. Yes, none of those were insults. I like him. I don't think he's bad, but I think he's getting rewarded with something, and I hope he's able to take the reins and do something really cool with it.
Totally.
Especially because this is a Grant Morrison run. I think he could do something that's off kiltered than we've seen with all the other stuff. And yeah, we'll have the Batman still coming from Reeves. We'll have this take. I'm still very much interested in what James Gunn's going to do, and Andy. So those are those movies that or this is the biggest movie that's out in theaters. Yeah, not the biggest movie that's out in theaters. Alongside, it's surprising to say, in June, I remember for the A to Z show, I was on this every opening weekend. The newest Pixar movie and its Easter eggs, oh, 100% I'm going to be there. It was always one of my best performing videos. Nobody cares about Pixar anymore. I
No.
I feel so bad because it's not
Wait, hold
even like
up.
I want to
Let me
trash
get the
it,
box office back up.
bro.
Below 30. The
They
worst
said the
opening for a Pixar movie ever.
ever. I got to see this one early, so I've been able to spot a lot of the little Easter eggs, all the cuteness that's in there. It's an interesting story in where it's pretty much just remixing Zootopia, if we're being honest, where all of these different inhabitants are now just elements in Elemental City that don't really mix. But somehow there is this love story that's going to break through as these fire people who live on the outskirts of what really is New York in this little borough. Uh, they're trying to make it in this shop, but the man's trying to take them down. There's too many ordinances, too many permits, and in that search for trying to keep the shop alive, and Ember, our main character, trying to run it herself, she falls head over heels, head over water for Wade, the city inspector who is also on the case to stop. Honestly, the plot of the Batman, a leak that's in the city. Zach, what did you think of Pixar's newest Elemental?
Well, I do think that like Pixar, even when we talk about Pixar as a company that's like lost its touch or lost its fastball, whatever idiom you want to use, uh, they don't make like terrible movies, and I didn't think this one was terrible. It in fact was like far better than I expected, given that I when I saw the trailers, I was like, this is the bottom of this is the depths. They've reached rock bottom for Pixar. So like I was able to enjoy this movie for what it was, but like it's not what Pixar is capable of, and in a lot of ways feels still like almost parody in some ways, because they reach for profundity and they kind of don't really get there. It's very heavy handed in a way that I think their best films aren't, because there's things that are really interesting, and I liked that they are trying to depict the idea of having your culture erased, and the things that immigrants
It's
have to
cool.
go through, the whole element of them having like arriving at Elemental Ellis Island or whatever it is, and having
Yeah.
their names changed is like a kind of radical idea to put in a kids movie. But the rest of it is so like, oh well, I might put you out because I'm fire, and I don't know. I
Yeah.
think there's a lack of visual creativity in the movie beyond the character design. There's one quick moment where there's a blimp and a bunch of like clouds exit the blimp, and the blimp deflates, and then more enter and it reflates. And I was like, we need like 100 more little jokes like that in this movie, and they just weren't really there. There's a couple small ones, but it just feels a bit too easy, a bit too not not, it doesn't like blow your mind or feel like it's the workings of an artist beyond your level in the way that I think a lot of Pixar's best movies do.
Hmm. Do you think that it's designed to be more for kids? Because maybe as an adult we overthink it, like you were saying.
Sure.
Do you think it's like an easy, accessible way for kids to get this message?
I do. My Letterbox review, I said I don't think it's a good movie, but I do think it's a good kids movie. And that
Good point.
heavy-handedness is the kind of thing that might like bring the point home to somebody who like hasn't waded into the immigration debate because they're 7. But like, it's just that I think when these movies are great, beyond Pixar, just any animated film that's ostensibly for kids but actually for all ages, they're able to interweave those messages in a way that feels more organic, feels less like the movie stopping to teach you a lesson.
Hmm.
I think there are cool things here, but I just think there's like there isn't that depth that I think you get from other better films. So for me, it's like, okay, it's not,
Yeah.
certainly worth it if you want to see a film with younger people. It's probably going to be one of the better kids or all family entertainment we get in the next month or two. But it's not something to go out of your way for otherwise, in my opinion.
Are there wood people in this world?
They're not lasting long.
There's wood people, right?
There are tree
get
people.
What do they sell here?
Yeah.
Wood. I am so confused. That's the only thing that gets me. You were mentioning all the little nuances in the background, and you're right, they're cool. But then you're like, okay, but if they're like kind of helping each other out, then there would
Yeah.
be like an odd one out here, and I feel like it's almost like making segregation make sense for why they need to live in the outskirts, and it's like
Yeah.
that's not the point you're trying to make. Like if you're JonTron, this is your movie for sure, but for the most part it's kind of like, I don't know, not fully thought out,
Yeah.
but a
I mean,
cute
like
way to approach it.
exactly. Like if you want to be charitable to it, it's like, oh, these things that shouldn't go together can find a way to coexist. But
Sure.
it just also inspires the thought like these things actually shouldn't coexist. They're actively dangerous for each other in a way that I don't think is comparable to like
Translates.
race.
100%. This one comes from Peter Song, who
Yeah.
has done a lot of Pixar movies. He's done a lot of voice acting as well. I mean, the man voiced a side character in Spider-Verse, so he knows what good animation is
Yeah.
like.
And
Um,
was my favorite part of Lightyear, his voice for the cat
Socks.
in that one,
Yeah,
Socks.
yeah.
But also directed maybe my least favorite Pixar movie in The Good Dinosaur, and the one whose financial failure record this one broke. So not like a
Dang, no, don't say that. Oh,
yeah
that's rough.
yeah.
Oh,
It's a
that
rough go for the
sucks.
guy who definitely doesn't deserve that reputation.
No, I like this guy a lot. Just part of the background, and we're gonna make a longer LME on it. But he obviously, came from immigrant parents, and
Mm-hmm.
he said that was a big part for the movie because they also passed in the making of this movie, and it was the idea of wanting to tell their story. So, like, look, he may not have the best movies out there, but I like his voice acting. I also do think he's a
Yeah.
standout. Just dude in general. I did like his elemental joke, bro, or for the good dinosaur, the good element. Because our joke was always that movie was nothing but animating water. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think he has a good self awareness. So shout out to the guy. It just sucks that the movies are not making it. Should it have gone just straight to Disney Plus? Do you worry that Pixar is just kind of being put in the back burner for Disney?
I mean, I think that Pixar movies deserve the big stage, and unfortunately, that means that you're ultimately going to release the less stellar ones in theaters alongside, hopefully, the better ones. It's just been like kind of a rough run for them, and
Mhm.
maybe we don't feel this way if they put Turning Red in theaters, and that gets its moment because I genuinely love Turning Red.
I,
Um,
rem- I remember people saying that those did fantastic, but I'm like, off of what? You don't even release the numbers.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that like they're gonna need that movie that has that like wide acclaim and cultural impact, and it's not a surprise that as soon as this one kind of didn't do great, they went back to the Toy Story well and announced Buzz and
Buzz and
Woody would
Woody.
be back.
Disgusting. Very weird.
Yeah,
Overall, I think it's, if you can catch it as a matinee, I think it's right there of still being a family movie.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to wait until Disney Plus for it to
Yeah.
really pop off.
Look, as the child of an immigrant who started a business that I did not take over, like it hit. The movie hit, but not in the way that you want these movies to hit.
When Zach went to Sundance, he went like this to his father and did the whole fire ritual. Elemental out in theaters, but it will be streaming soon. Pretty animation. Yeah. The next one that we had was one that Zach caught at TIFF. He has been telling me that it's stacked with back-to-back jokes. I went to a theater, but it wasn't sold out. I heard them. I went through some interviews. They had to make this louder in the second TIFF screening because people were too loud during the premiere. That's great.
Yeah.
When you don't have that, I like the movie. I'm going to talk nothing but positive, but I got to start with this.
Okay.
You are missing what is like the most awkward laugh track, and that is the only thing I would give the movie a little bit of a pushback for, because this is based off of a short. I don't know if you've seen the sketch.
No,
I
actually,
played on Comedy Central, bro. I didn't remember it until I started playing it. There are certain jokes from the sketch that didn't make it to this movie. A lot did, but there's a certain joke. I don't want to spoil it. I was like, damn, I remember this sketch. Holy smokes. Dwayne's in this one. Wait, Dwayne, who was my favorite character in the movie, is also the writer of the movie. Oh my gosh, It all clicked. The sketch does something that I think has been a big push and pull between theatrical movies and stuff that gets released online. There is a quickness to online editing that I think audiences have evolved to, where you're not waiting for a laugh track. Mind you, it's because you can rewind it. You know, you can say it's the internet. But you're also looking to make movies that will be rewinded. You want to make movies where people are laughing over whatever the throwaway line, honestly, when you're making a movie, needs to be when someone says a big punchline. The best jokes in this movie are not the ones where they pause for the laughter.
Yes.
The best jokes, bro, someone talked about glasses in the background. All good from here on out, bro. This is stacked with so many freaking good jokes, and the cast is fantastic. When they are cooking, they are cooking. It is the story of a group of friends who have not been together for a long time, some even longer than others. They go to a cabin in the woods. They find this, what do they call it? Jim Crow Monopoly board, and they have to play this game called the Blackening, in where they are playing trivia to see who is the blackest in order to survive, because in a horror movie, the trope is black people are the first to die. So what happens when everyone is black? Bro, they knocked it out of the park with so many good jokes in this movie. I thought it hit on so many levels. And again, if they would have made it just tighter, you can notice it with the sketch. Yo, this would have been an instant classic. I still think it's going to be one that I'm going to revisit for sure. But you do need a loud audience.
Yeah. You do hear what I was trying to say, though, in that it does feel a little bit like it could have used another script pass. There's some bits that maybe lag a little bit. Like, there's a lot of very funny stuff in there. But there's also a lot of stuff that's kind of like, I feel like I've heard that joke at least 10 times on Twitter already.
For sure. To me, it would have been the editing, you know? But it's like, you could throw that joke in there as a buffer joke that we've already heard. You still want to make it, but like, don't linger on it. Like you said, like as if we haven't heard it already. It is balancing, I wouldn't fully call it parody, but it definitely is. You know, it's these people who are in a scenario, and as much as they're proving like, hey, this is a black cast, they're also proving they could be as dumb as the whitest characters in horror movies.
Right.
They are
but it's
still
also... Yeah. But it's not Scary Movie in that it's like, oh, we're gonna wear a scream mask and allude to all these things. It's a parody or a satire of the black horror experience, or like what black characters end up doing in these types of movies.
Do you remember Jermaine Fowler was in Coming to America too?
Yeah, he was given the keys to the kingdom.
I'm trying to find someone where Jay Farrell's at. Jay Farrell opens up the movie with the funniest impression of Eddie Murphy Coming to America. And then him and Yvonne have, go back to it, they have the best meta line at the opening of the movie.
Yes,
when talking about
the best joke in the movie to me is their line.
No one got the joke in my screening.
Aww.
And like I said, the joke is made and it lingers.
Yeah.
So when no one gets it, you're like, ah. Because it is one of those movies that's thriving on someone laughing, and even if someone doesn't get a joke, you know, a lot of the specificity in it, you almost like laugh with the good time that everyone's having in the theater.
Yeah.
So I'm sure if you see this with a packed audience, it's gonna hit. It's time to be released for Juneteenth weekend, which is today. So I can see it being a bigger hit, maybe when it's on streaming and you get like a group of people to see it. but with the convolutedness that is the movie releases nowadays, next week is probably the softest week we're gonna have. I wish it was released next week, but obviously, like I said, they wanted to time it for the holiday. But for it to go up against the Jennifer Lawrence movie, that would have been dope to see. Have two comedies duke it out instead of it kind of getting muddled within the family movie and the big blockbuster people have been waiting for. I think it's solid. I'd recommend it. I think everyone in the cast is hilarious. I don't know if you had a favorite out of everybody in the cast.
Well, Dwayne Perkins, I think, gets a lot of great lines. He's very funny in it, and we do.
Killed it.
We've shouted out Jermaine Fowler a lot. He kind of plays sort of like the antagonistic force in the movie in some ways, but he's very, very funny in it. Who I always like Melvin Gregg. I shouted out too. Cinqua, is it Wallace? Who was also in
White Man Can't Jump
recently. Yeah. Also, I think was pretty funny. I mean, like, they give everybody some shine in this one.
Yeah. I have to shout out Jermaine does this thing with his mouth for the whole movie, and it leads to one of my favorite jokes, which is a joke involving a stare. Killed me. I think that was the joke that got everybody in my audience, because it was the perfect intersection of comedy, the horror suspense elements, and going with the story, because there is a message with it as well that I think is funny, about what is blackness, what is, is there an idea of a monolith or not? I know that's what attracted a lot of people in the cast to come do it. And I also think that the ending is hilarious because they have a mid-credit scene in terms of how they survive or do not survive the events of the night. But overall, I think everyone fires on all cylinders. Again, I agree with you. You're saying a little bit more on the script. I'm saying a little bit more on the editing. And I think you would have had... Yeah. I might even give it an extra half star for that. But
no,
great cast.
I definitely agree with the editing quote too. It almost feels like they should recut it for the home release because it's definitely cut to be enjoyed in like a packed movie theater, which is not a bad thing until you don't see it in a packed movie theater.
If you a lot of jokes in the movie that I felt lingered a bit too much, the way they're cut in the trailer, I'm like, oh, there we go. the way that they're presented there are really good. Definitely check out the sketch online. It's also called The Blackening. It's, I think, hosted by Comedy Central. Just as funny, if not even tighter. There's some jokes that did not make the cut for the movie, so do yourself a favor and watch that. Even if you haven't seen the movie, prep yourself with that, and it may intrigue you to go watch it. So, The Blackening out in theaters, I think it's worth the trip, especially if you can find a packed one. That said, we had the biggest movie to come out on Netflix, so good that even though the first one of these kills the main character, they extracted him back from the dead. Extraction 2. Yeah, more action.
Yeah.
The first one had a 12-minute wonder, Zach. They said, what if we took the 2 and put it in front of the 1 and made it a 21-minute wonder?
They doubled down.
Perfect Father's Day movie, if you have Father's
Day. That's a great way of putting it, because I definitely recommended my dad watch this one and he enjoyed it. It's not the most complicated film in terms of the plot it's trying to tell. In fact, it's quite simple in terms of like the story that it's setting out for, and it's not like, I wouldn't even say that it's the most breathtaking action choreography. This is not like John Wick level. How did they, orchestrate this so beautifully? You feel the choreography of it a little more than you do in a John Wick film. But I think Chris Hemsworth is extremely good in this type of role. Like, it's so fun to see him when he is like a bit ironic and a bit knowing and leans into the comedy. But he can do this kind of straight, tough guy action role as well, and command that physical presence in a way that is believable and also badass. Like, I think this movie ups the level of badassery from the last one, particularly in that Wonder sequence. Like, it's almost like a video game in the way he's taken out people. Yes. But like, it's just extremely enjoyable. And I think some people sort of debate on the Wonder specifically and whether or not Wonders are played out, especially now that we've moved more towards like digital video and digital editing. It's so much easier to pull these off with camera tricks and with CGI. And I saw a lot of people like thinking themselves clever and being like, oh, well, I can see the cuts. It's like, we all can see the cuts, but it's about how it makes you feel. And yeah, I'm not like as blown away technically by this as I was like Birdman or something when that happened 10 years ago. but it's extremely thrilling and it keeps you in the tension of the moment. I found it to be very effective, even if it isn't like the most revolutionary film craft in the world.
For sure. I'm a big fan of long takes and oneers,
Yeah.
so I did semi have that critique only in the sense of sometimes you can tell where they needed a buffer and the camera. Look, we all know where the cuts are, but sometimes the camera goes somewhere and you're like, you're only going over there for one specific reason.
Right.
It also is one where I'm reminded constantly of better movies that did it.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I see this yard one, which is also one of the best parts of the, it's 21 minutes. I'd put it in the top 3 moments of the 21-minute scene because they set him on fire. You see it in the trailer.
That's
they claimed
awesome.
to have really done it.
Yeah.
But then I'm also thinking of the raid scene. The raid 2 yard fight scene, which is also meant to look like a wonder, that also has those cut moments in there. But like you're saying, it's not
More
really
effective.
about... Thank you. It's just more effective. There's a moment later on when they finally escape the prison scene. I don't know if I have it here. It's in the train, or on the way to the train, they enter a car. I'm thinking Children of Men, dude. They're doing the whole move around and literally
Yeah.
a car explodes outside and goes out there. So I'm like reminded of all of the influences to it. It's not a bad thing, but
Yeah.
I want to watch the next one or going, yeah, they pulled that thing from Extraction 2. And that's why the Extraction 1 Wonder still sticks with me, because I keep imagining Sam Hargreaves, which I got to give some credit to right here, bro. That man was strapped to the car in the first one that gets just, that they just blew up.
Yeah.
And did you know Sam Hargreaves? Shout out this man right here, dude. He worked on all of the Avengers movies, Captain America movies.
Yeah.
These big movies have a thing called a second unit director where they're getting the stunt guys to almost do the group project for them. Dude, I found out that the Wakanda scene where Thor arrives, you're wondering how they became friends, was directed by this man. The Captain America versus Captain America scene, he's playing old Cap since he was donning the suit for him as a stunt double since the beginning. And then
There
he
you
had his
go.
brother playing young Cap, and he directed that scene. Zach, what'd the Russos do?
Talked about how the movie is like a 70s spy thriller, I guess. I don't know.
Dear Lord. So shout out Sam. I'm glad that he's been able to do these inventive things here.
Hey, they
you had
still
mentioned John Wick.
aren't they still producers on the Extraction movies also?
Of course they are. It was funny. I went back to my first Extraction video that I did, and I'm like, it's really cool to see the Russos producing. They're doing something for the Daniels.
Little did we know.
They did something for the Daniels.
Yeah.
So Extraction 2, I think, still lives up to the thrills and the chills that the
Yeah.
first one gives you. I think it's still entertaining to watch. It is pushing it with 2 hours. Maybe it could be a little bit tighter.
Agreed.
But they're looking to expand it. There is a character that appears. I mean, I'm staring at his name right now. I do consider him a spoiler. But several outlets were releasing it. And I think it's a matter of like, well, that outlet released it, so we should too. And I'm like, I think you just become a part of the chain. So I don't want to say who it is. They're not in it that big, but they're being built upon for the third one. I could say
Right.
that. So Extraction 3. I don't know if you have a subtitle for it, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. All the
Alrighty.
dads are.
Extraction 3, Father's Day. Perfect timing for it. I know you have one other one that's limited that you're going to have for picks for the week. So let's talk about the newest Black Mirror Season 6. Caught me completely off guard. I don't know why I thought they were going to be doing it on a weekly basis. No. Whole thing is out. And it's getting mixed reviews, which I'm really surprised by. But mind you, I don't think it's mixed reviews as much as someone complains about it and then everyone else goes, this first opinion I heard, so it must be my opinion until I hear second opinion. So Zach, let's maybe change the tide.
Sure.
You haven't been able to finish all of them yet, right? And I'm
No.
also missing the last 2, which
Cool.
seems like this one unanimously has been considered the worst one. But we both did catch Joan is Awful. Break this one down. Your thoughts on it. Whether it still lives up to the Black Mirror hype.
Yeah, so Joan is Awful, which directed, as we previously shouted out, Ali Panku, who did another movie that we like back at South by Southwest called I Used to Be Funny. So a talent to watch as
Really?
well. Yeah. So
wow.
I definitely was like hopeful for this one going in, and it's got an interesting Black Mirror-y type of premise where this woman who is like working a very average job and just living a pretty average life suddenly finds that her life has been turned into a prestige TV show on Streamberry, which is this reality's very, very blatant version of Netflix. Same ba-bum sound and everything.
But they still have Netflix, as we find out later in another episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so, and then from there, you know, she's just dealing with her life being portrayed to make her look worse than she is, and starring Salma Hayek, and the fallout from that, which is like a solid, not only like a solid premise, but the timing of it is particularly good, given that like we are in the middle of a writer's strike, where one of the contentious issues is the idea of incorporating AI into writing, and these computers who could potentially serve as the creators of content going forward. A little weird that Netflix is putting this one out, given some of their positions, but that's for another topic. You know,
does that affect you?
I mean, I don't think it really affects me, because ultimately this is like something that Charlie Brooker wrote, Ali Pinky directed.
Thank you.
Right. Like Ted Sarandos isn't coming in and giving notes as much as like he might be able to. I don't think he cares that much.
Not like Kevin Feige with the She-Hulk bit that they did there.
Yeah, they're like, I feel like sometimes these things slip by because there's just so much content in the machine, right?
It's also Netflix. Netflix does not care. They're willing to call themselves out.
So they're invincible at this point.
They don't care.
Yeah. This isn't going to do anything for. And maybe that could be a criticism of itself, is that this is like it's ultimately like a blunted criticism, because it's not really it's you know, not going to do anything for the platform that it's on. But that's a whole other point. Getting to the episode itself, there's a lot of it that's really enjoyable. I thought the performances in particular are fun. I think it's written a little bit broad. Yeah, I think it's written a little bit broad for my taste, and you can explain some of that away with the twists that happen at the end.
Yeah,
but I still think that, like, to me, the best Black Mirror episodes are the ones that feel like reality, and this one didn't feel like reality to me.
Okay.
It's still like very fun to watch, and like the timeliness of it too has to be something in its favor. But yeah, it's not my favorite of the Black Mirrors we've gotten. I'm still curious to check out the rest, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I loved it.
I thought it was pretty decent. You were mentioning with the writer's strike, the idea that it's not just on the viewer, but even the actors who are profiting off of it, selling their images, and then not realizing that, you know, it's not going to go well. I do think it's the next step. I think it's commenting on a lot of things that are going to make this episode age pretty well, in my opinion. Because when you follow up with the second one, you do have what a lot of people are considering the best one, maybe of the series, maybe that and the Loch Ness one, that and the Beyond the Rift, I think it's called, because the second one's about true crime, and I feel like as long as it's true crime, which they can sit down and watch, and it's separated from them, very good. But when the criticism and the satire is too close to the viewer not reading the terms and conditions, then I guess it crosses the line to some people. I do have to give a shout out to Io's agent. It's getting out of hand, bro. It's ridiculous at this point.
She's everywhere.
I had to retweet. Alina had sent it to me because we had joked about when in the Golden Globes, I think, or the Emmys, she came out and pretty much just did an audition because she's like, all the directors are watching. Well, boy, did they listen. It is unbelievable. Everything. She's freaking, like, these are not misses at all. Newest season of I Think You Should Leave, Spider-Verse, Black Mirror, Clone High, the upcoming season of The Bear. Bro, every time she appears as April O'Neil in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that's, I don't know why, that's the one that did it for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, she's here.
Yeah,
she's
you're
here.
A real celebrity.
And then obviously one of your favorite movies of the year that's not even out yet. She's
Bottoms.
she's gonna have one hell of a summer. Already is. Abbott, just unbelievable run she's in. So shout out to her. Fantastic.
Yeah.
In terms of all of the other ones that are in there, I think Loch Ness, like I said, is an interesting take on the murder mystery or true crime. It just, this one gets a little goofy in my opinion. The moment that you realize what the ending is and you rewatch it, I am curious your thoughts on Beyond the Sea. I think it's a little too long. There's a lot of twists and turns there. So I'm curious your opinion on this one. And then maybe by next week we'll wrap up on Maisie Day and Demon 79.
Yeah. definitely a lot more that we can get into as we finish the season.
For sure. Tribeca time. There are several movies that have come out of the Tribeca Film Festival. Zach, you've had a way of phrasing Tribeca as it kind of being like the, there are some movies that have their premieres at a festival and then go
Mhm.
theatrical. No offense to Tribeca. It's like the premiere for the streaming movies that are never going to be in a theater.
Yeah.
And it turns out a lot of these are coming out on streaming.
Exactly. And look, like there are movies that I've really enjoyed that have premiered here, but like there's usually like a type of movie that plays here. All right. I was going over the past couple of years of Tribeca, trying to think of some of my favorite films that I've caught here, and it was films like Always Shine, films like The Novice, Swallow,
Ooh.
which are all really good movies, but they're also these like kind of intimate, smaller, very, very kind of like, you know, sometimes a little bit more personal films as well. And the thing about that is that like that's a that's a type of movie that I feel like is hard to do right. It's hard to do it in a way where you are attracting an audience that's beyond the people who it directly applies to. So I feel like you end up wading through a lot of films that it's kind of like, not for me.
Yeah.
But there are those things that stand out that are excellent. And, even the films that I don't think are excellent, they're usually interesting, just maybe not for me, for some other audience. So we'll talk about the ones that we really responded to. We'll talk about some of the ones that we maybe didn't respond to as much. And maybe we'll even get into some more Tribeca stuff next week, because as I mentioned, the Tribeca at home availability starts today and runs through July 2nd. So you might even get a chance to catch up on some of the award winners if you're listening to us and want to pay for that pass. So yeah, where do you want to start? With the narratives, with the docs?
Tell me, out of the narratives we have bunched up here, what your favorite one was that you think people should catch since they're on the clock for at home.
So I'll go with two ones here because
Okay.
I like them for different reasons. When we're talking about those personal films that tend to highlight Tribeca, one of the award winners was a film called Smoking Tigers. It ended up winning the U.S. Narrative Feature Prize for Best Screenplay from
Nice.
So Young Shelley, as well as the Best Performance. Ji Young Yu won for that. And it's this story about a young Korean American girl in the 2000s as she's studying for college and dealing with her familial issues and just like coming and growing up. It's a standard coming of age plot given a lot of specificity through its portrayal, like through being firmly set in this kind of Korean American aspirational part of the world where she's taking these she's taking these classes specifically to prep for this SATs and looking at a wall of photos of previous graduates holding up their acceptances to different Ivy League schools. It's very very regimented and there's a lot of expectations on her, but she's also just dealing with the natural difficulties of becoming a full grown person and learning about the world and learning who your parents are, and I don't know, there's certainly elements that I felt like were very relatable. Just get if you come from any kind of like college preparatory background, she gets a lot of the details right. The hyper focus on test scores and stuff like that. It might be typical in some ways, but it's also just very true. So I'd give a quick shout out to Smoking Tigers in that regard.
We were talking about movies that have that Asian experience. I still
Yeah.
think one of the best ones, right, has to be Rice Boy Sleep. So
Love
just
Rice Boy Sleeps.
just sneaking that one in there because they also have that very similar color palette in the
Did we ever talk about the Michael Jordan joke in Rice Boy Sleeps? That was so funny.
It's a good movie. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
I think it may be out on VOD. I could be mistaken, but yeah.
I think it
definitely
is. Yes.
Definitely add this one to your list as well. It's a very good one. Oh yeah, it's out right there. So, all right.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good pairing. I hadn't thought of that until just now.
Yeah, we start a podcast. You had the space one. I haven't seen it yet. I think the link is still live as well.
Yeah.
Tell me about this girl doing the thing as an astronaut.
So yeah, ISS stands for International Space Station. If you don't
Of
know,
course. Yeah.
um, it's about a group of astronauts, 3 Americans, 3 Russian cosmonauts, who are aboard the International Space Station doing, as astronauts do, various experiments and tests and learning about, all that the
Ooh.
great beyond has to offer. That is until a bomb goes off on Earth, which sets them on a different, much more tense path than they
Interesting.
anticipated when they came up to space. And look, this isn't exactly like the most high class, like action drama there is. Um, Even in terms of like movies set in space, there's a lot of like, oh, I can see you're kind of like on wires and maybe a rolly chair that you green screened out in this moment. Like I'm not,
The little leg pull like that. Yeah.
it's not exactly like a huge technological achievement, and there's some, I would even say there's even some like weird logic that maybe doesn't all add up, but just as like the kind of movie that you'd catch on cable one afternoon and not turn away from, I think it's like a pretty fun, like exploration of what might happen, and the tensions and the competing allegiances, and these scientists who are suddenly tasked into becoming, survivors and warriors. And I don't know, I enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought it's kind of for like a low rent action movie. I would highly suggest this one. We were talking about like good Father's Day watches. This is a good one.
Oh, fair. I don't think this one has been picked up yet, but I mean, it's a decent budget, 22 mil. I think goes right with what you were saying about these movies, where Tribeca has the ability to host a lot of these films that aren't being pushed to theaters and sometimes aren't even being made. This sounds like
Yeah.
exactly that type of movie. So awesome. I have that one on deck to catch as well. Looking
Do
forward
you
to
have
that
any
one.
favorites from the narratives?
There were some decent ones in there. I think just like you have stuff that like really intrigues you, and then
Hmm.
you want to pitch the premise to people, but will it, you know, is it worth going out to the theater or at least catching at home so that they don't feel like the ending didn't fulfill them? You'll Never
Exactly.
Find Me was a decent little thriller about a woman who appears in the middle of the night during the rain at someone's house. And they play it off really well because it's all in one location. You're being surrounded by all the sound of the rain, and you don't really know who's the one who shouldn't be there or not. Is she there because she's got something up her sleeve? Do you automatically have the barbarian mentality that it's like, nah, I would not go into a random stranger's house? Where's his partner? Why are there things that don't seem like they belong to him scattered all over the house? It plays it effectively for a good while. It's I think an Australian movie. It has that tension going for a good minute. There's really good dialogue coming from both characters. It does give you a definitive ending, which I think people really want. This is a movie where I think it would have been better without one. Because the moment
Hmm.
you have that, you look back at one of them and go, "Oh yeah, you're a psychopath." But a lot of the lines at the beginning, they're playing off of each other of like who really is the maybe perpetrator, maybe they're both
Hmm.
victims, maybe it's just a rainy day and they just ended up in the scenario. Again, really good sound. They do a really good job with the performances and filming in one location. That when it's out on streaming, definitely think it's worth the watch. You'll Never Find Me.
Nice.
One that I swore was a South by movie. It's filmed in Texas and would have actually been perfect over there is this
Yeah.
movie called Lost Souls. I swear I remember hearing about this movie where a bunch of rappers got together and then just went out to the middle of nowhere. And it was called Lost Souls. Interesting movie where you have a bunch of rappers playing a persona of themselves. One of the leads, he actually traveled with damn, no, I'm blanking on it. Rest in peace, Juice World. And you,
Oh,
you can
okay.
hear elements there, I don't know if the influence goes them being on tour with someone as big as Juice World, Kid Leroy, if they were the influences as many times it is as well. But you have several rappers who are they have their own careers. They're coming here to play a variation of themselves. This is another one that we would consider technically a hybrid, kind of like Cypher. And as we noticed in some of the press notes to Tribeca, they were kind of mixing up Lost Souls and Cypher as well.
Yeah.
I think it has these really cool elements where they're just chilling. It is a vibes movie through and through. Whenever they're doing narrative, I don't think it's the strongest point, but whenever they're freestyling, someone drops a beat and they're all like trying to figure out what the verse is going to be, what the flow is going to be. Then they get it, and then the beat stops because it's only a minute. Those are the best parts of the movie, and that's why if this was playing at South by, it would have really killed. South by has a lot of those movies where they're just like you're just vibing with the characters, and whenever they're in that creation mode, I think is when it really excels. I'd be curious to see what all of these artists do in the future. I think it's shot very well as well. But yeah, Lost Souls. If you're interested in kind of the creative process and just following and vibing with these people, check out Lost Souls.
Nice.
I would actually pair it with another documentary. I'll mention this one really quick. Apollonia. I think we should both have a link for this one if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Very long, but I was seeing a lot of people really recommend this because it is about an artist who is struggling to not just fit in within her community and specifically where she's from. Let me double check over here to make sure. I'm pretty sure it's Denmark. And it's a movie where it becomes less about her. I mean, it's fully her journey, but at a certain point, it really is about the creation process. And what do you do when you're like not even considered to be at your prime, or maybe you've fallen and your art isn't really reflecting what people want to see or buy or market. And again, it's a very long introspective documentary, but just like with Lost Souls, that does it in a narrative sense, this is a documentary that's covering an artist trying to discover themselves. I thought it was pretty solid. So just to compare those two there. Wrapping up the narratives though, I got one and then you got one that I was really excited for, and I'm kind of disappointed that it's not that good.
Yeah.
The first one is Catching Dust. I don't know if you caught this one.
Mm-hmm. I did.
All right, I'll let you explain the beginning because I don't even have a picture here, and honestly, the visuals are the best part of it. So let me find you a picture while you describe it.
Yeah. Well, it's a film about a couple, a pair of couples out in the desert, sort of running from things in their past, right? And they collide in this way where they're able to bounce off of each other and raise the tension, and there's always questions of who's allegiant to who and why, and are things simmering between couples that shouldn't be, one of those films that gets into kind of like weedy, like sexual emotional mixed up dynamics, right? So as kind of like a very intimate thriller, it's pretty good. I found myself being finding it a little bit melodramatic. It's really steered by these performances, like Erin Moriarty in particular, who a lot of people will know from The Boys, where she's what's her name? Starlight. Starlight. Yeah, man, it's been a while since I watched The Boys.
I'm such a nerd. I should have gotten it wrong. I'm sorry.
It's better than me trying to call her a Weekend character or something. But I thought she's particularly good, like in a very different type of role than what she gets to do on The Boys. I know you're always excited for a Jai Courtney appearance. What did you think of him as her kind of controlling boyfriend?
He wasn't that bad, dude. I like the beard. Yeah. I think out of the two, he had the better accent. I had the like auto translations for the captions on at the bottom. Every time she said it was named Clive Klein, it would just say it would say something completely different, but it would at least translate my boy pretty well. So I thought he was good. He kind of has that menacing demeanor to him because you don't fully know why they're living out in the middle of nowhere at first.
Right.
You just know that he kind of dragged her out there. There's this line she says early on where she's like, "Did you get whatever from the store?" And he goes, "No, we don't have the money for it." He's like, "You sure you don't want to buy me a smaller box to keep me captured in?" And I was like, "Damn, there's a good play in the performances and the way the dialogue is written, even if the events and how they play out, I don't know if it wrapped fully towards the third act of the movie the way that I was expecting it to, or the way that I would expect these characters to really clash with each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit like they're forcing some of the climaxes. I don't know. It's maybe a little less organic, but I do think like you're saying, like there's a strong visual
it's
component
beautiful
to it. Yeah, it's well shot, and they are able to build up that tension in a way too. The unanswered questions element of it that I think you're getting at it worked.
Yeah, there's also because the couple that ends up moving in the middle of nowhere because they thought it was a commune, comes from New York, and there's this a visual difference between them living in a trailer park and them living in a semi that dropped off what is practically one of those minimalist houses. He's also like an artist, and they have this clash between the two of them. But I like the writing. There's just certain moments where something's brought up from one couple just to answer for the audience what happened to this other couple.
Mhm.
But other than that, I think it'd be an interesting movie to stream, one that has decent performances, and like we both said, some really beautiful shots. I don't think this one was shot in Texas because I waited for the credits. I know it was shot on film, and it definitely shows, but I think they filmed overseas somewhere. So I'd be curious to know more about what the cinematographer's going to do next for sure.
Yeah.
Tell me about first time female director, a movie that did not have online screenings.
Yeah,
Because it's going to have an online premiere on Roku.
exactly. They're keeping this one well guarded so that people can, I guess, try and catch it over on Roku. Although honestly, I would not really bother. Unfortunately, this is the movie that I think I was the most hyped for coming into Tribeca. It stars and is the directorial debut of one Chelsea Peretti, a very, very funny stand-up, a writer who's worked on shows like Parks and Recreation that I like, a very talented performer in her own right too, when she does show up in various comedies and TV shows. But and she's gathered a pretty excellent cast here between Megan Mullally, Amy Poehler, Natasha Leggero, Kate Berlant, Tim Heidecker, Andy Richter, Meg Stalter. A lot of people that I personally like and find very funny, and yet I had a lot of trouble finding them funny in this movie. It's just a lot of like very like very like basic cringe comedy, the type of humor where you see somebody trying really hard but it's not really clicking. The premise being that Chelsea is this playwright who has been asked to direct one of her plays for the first time. So she's now part of this like local theater troupe trying to sort of command the room and be like the best director possible, but she has no idea how to do it. And part of it is trying to play off the idea of gender dynamics and what is sort of the patriarchal elements that keep women from ascending to these types of roles, but also the victimhood of white feminists. Like there's interesting stuff alluded to, but that's all it is. It's just sort of alluded to. They don't really dive into it or have a strong take on it. The film ended and I was sort of left feeling like that's it. That's all you're trying to say here. I was just, I don't know, pretty disappointed with how half-hearted a lot of it felt, how tossed off a lot of it is. Like there's a lack of intentionality, a lack of specificity to the characters and the story particular, which like, we saw a movie earlier this year at Sundance Theater Camp, which was largely improvised, and they talked about how they found a lot of that movie through the editing, but that still felt like a story with a beginning, middle, and end. This is just a collection of ideas and moments, and a lot of them, there's like that awful rate stretched slow motion that just looks cheap and embarrassing. Dude, I've never seen so much rate stretched slow motion in a movie. It is really, really a disaster in certain points. And yeah, what's the boy that shot Nope? Shoot, what's his name? He's so good. Anyway, he didn't shoot this movie.
Look, I'm excited because now you got another directing duo over here, right? Chelsea Peretti, first directorial debut, right?
Yeah.
Unless she's done some TV, but it's her first feature. She's married to Jordan Peele, who obviously to you and I is one of the greatest filmmakers working right now.
Yeah.
It sounds though. Let me know. This is how it ends.
Oh. Don't do it like that. I mean, yes, true, but
you're not wrong, but you have to say it. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
It's what it sounded like to me. I'm excited for it because it looks like it's a stacked cast, but
yeah, and I don't want to say
how it ends.
And I don't want to say I didn't laugh. Like if you pack your movie with like 5 jokes a minute and you're as funny as a lot of these people are, there are moments. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some people come out of it and be like, I laughed, I enjoyed it, but I just feel like so many of the jokes are so like poorly crafted and kind of like not really specific in a way that it honestly bummed me out.
You saw this in a theater? You got the a link for it.
Man, this is like one of the only films that I actually trekked all the way to New York to see in a theater.
How was the theater?
It's fine. AMC in 19th Street is like a very inconvenient location.
Ew.
But the seats are comfy. The seats are
He
comfy.
didn't say the AMC. He said AMC on 19th Street. There's a difference right there. Already
Yeah.
noted. The audience didn't add to it? Nothing? It didn't seem like people were vibing with it?
There were some people, but it was a press screening too, so it's a little more,
You should have started
stuffy
with that.
and
You should have
yeah.
started with that. Gotcha. Okay. Well, it's coming out on Roku. I don't know if we have a date for it, but at least, it'll be free as Roku continues
Yeah.
to add to their catalog. They had the one from TIFF last year, which was, y'all got to see it. What was the other? The big Roku one. Yeah,
The Weird Al movie, yeah.
So, I mean, they're not throwaways. Even if they may not live up to, the potential for many, there's pretty big pickups for Roku. So
Yeah, Roku's
we'll see
making
how
a
it
real
goes.
effort to try and get into that space. And look, I mean, there's a lot of
100%.
famous people, and there's going to be some cameos that I'm sure people are delighted to see. I just wish it was better.
Sounds raw. Let's go to the documentaries before we end with one of the biggest winners and my most anticipated. I mentioned Apollonia, a documentary about a artist that kind of gets down to all of the stuff that she's been working on. I saw Everybody, which I kind of mentioned last week. It is the newest one by just Julie Cohen. She's usually a duo who has done multiple movies. I've shouted out every single one of these documentaries. I think they're just really good at making profiles. Betsy West is not included in this one, but it pretty much just talks about intersex people and just like from the inception of birth, how people decide. This isn't, as many would argue, someone who gets to decide later. These are people who are born intersex and decisions are made for them. Very
Right.
good documentary. Check this one out when it's out.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised to see that Focus Features is attached to it. You don't
Big
normally
name.
see a big
Yeah.
name on a documentary like that. So hopefully it'll actually get into some theaters.
Agreed. Oh, they're also just whoever does publicity for their team. They've always been really good. I don't. It's not a matter of like being nice to us. You and I are always talking about publicity teams that are like, "Are you sure you want this movie?" Yeah, I'm requesting it. We'll wait until it's closer to a release date or when it's this. Or many times we get people who don't give us a link and then nobody sees their movie and they go, magically found, magically
Right.
found a link for you. Focus Features, and they walk their talk. They make these profiles, these meaningful documentaries, and they're not they don't gatekeep them. They always make sure to release stuff out there, even when it's a big studio behind it.
Yeah. The gatekeeping was real bad at this year's Tribeca. I just got to tell you, I saw maybe
ridiculous.
half the movies I intended to because people decided not to share them. Like,
Exactly.
I'm sorry, you're the ones who submitted these films to Tribeca. I'm just trying to watch them.
And they're gonna be streaming like by July 15th.
Yeah.
So I looked at so many of them. I'm like, what's the point?
Yeah, have them going straight to VOD.
I don't get it. Trust us, it is not the way to go. But hey, nonetheless, you did see this one called "Scream of My Blood." I think this looks pretty interesting. Okay, gotcha. I know this one again. Talk about it again.
This is the Gogol Bordello documentary. I talked about it briefly last week, but I'll talk about it a little bit more right now because Gogol Bordello is a really fun band. I, like many Americans, first found out about them when the lead singer Eugene Hutz was cast in Everything is Illuminated. Did you ever see Liev Schreiber's directorial debut, Everything is Illuminated? With Elijah Wood returning to Trace's ancestral roots. Yeah.
Damn, I know this poster, but I
Great
don't.
poster.
Great poster.
Really
but
beautiful
I've
looking
never
movie.
Seen the movie.
Yeah, it's a beautiful looking movie.
Recommend it?
Yeah, I'd recommend it. You know who shot it? Matthew Libatique, who ended up doing like all the Aronofsky movies, like Requiem for a Dream and Black Swan. Somewhat less notably, Don't Worry, Darling. But
it's still, the movie still look nice. Yeah, good cinematography.
Exactly.
Oh no, dude, yo, he is good. He is great. He is the best part of the behind the scenes for Don't Worry, Darling. Yes, I know the guy. Okay.
Yeah. I'll recommend Everything is Illuminated, but getting to the documentary, it's a really cool story about this band. Essentially, what they identify as like gypsy punk, essentially, because they're from like Roman people, or at least that's what Eugene is, and he's a immigrant who immigrated to Vermont actually as a teenager from Ukraine, and the band Gogol Bordello, which plays this kind of like old Eastern European style inflected punk music, is entirely assembled from different immigrants from different areas, and some of them are Ukrainian immigrants, but a lot of them are from Latin American countries or from all over the place. Like it's just kind of become this hub of musicians who have identities that are mixed in some way, which gives it a kind of unique charm and ends up being part of like the story that he's telling. So the film partially tracks the story of the band and how they rose to fame and sort of the ideas behind it that motivated this in the first place, but also talks about Eugene's past in Ukraine and what's going on in that nation now, because he went and visited recently with the war going on and everything. So I think it's a really fascinating look at just like a guy who's lived a fascinating life and in an interesting collection of people who are doing something a bit different, becoming this like space for immigrant kids to flock to. I don't know. I dig it, but I'm also a big fan of the band, and maybe that's just like it's documentaries like this that convert a lot of people. So maybe if they're a band that you've heard of or it sounds interesting to you, this could be like a fun entry point.
Sounds good. I mean, I don't know too much of them, but I'll do that double feature with the movie as well. Let you know by next week. Sounds good. All right. That one is Scream of My Blood. Really cool poster.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the title's already dope, but like, damn it, IMDb. Right here, Scream of My Blood. That's sick. I like that.
Yeah.
Two quick ones here because they're already streaming. Stan Lee, they sent this one early. Bro, this is great. I asked for it through Tribeca. They said no. The next day, Disney sent it to me.
Right? Why?
Along with the Secret Invasion episodes. How can I get the secret, like the biggest thing Marvel has, but I can't get some of these docs. Stan Lee is the documentary about, you guessed it, Jack Kirby, and how he was taken, all of his creativity was taken by Stan Lee. Look, I know how the Disney docs go. It's going to be an 86-minute piece talking about the guy who did all the marketing for himself. I love Stan Lee. I met Stan Lee. One of my favorite pictures is seeing him with my buddy Brian at Comic-Con. One of the
you're wearing Batman gear. I think
Yo, bro, yeah. Thank you. The best. He's the GOAT. We know this. In the documentary himself, he obviously he's not here. The way that it's edited, it's done in a way where you don't really get to the nitty gritty. His name is Stan Lee. I want to say it's Lieb. He has a Jewish sounding name. And as he starts writing Captain America fighting Nazis, he just goes, and I cut it to Stan Lee. And I'm like, what? Can I know more about that? That sounds really... Yeah, I want to know more about just Stan Lee.
Stanley Martin Lieber.
And then they just leave it like that. And I'm like, well, I thought this was the doc where I'm supposed to get to know you. Okay, we're going to spend 10 minutes on you and your wife spending a lot of money and living paycheck to paycheck. Okay, let's talk about the creativity side of it. Stan Lee says it with his whole chest. I will tell Jack Kirby a bullet point list of what to do. And then returns. And I'm like, bro, this is the worst thing to say to a documentary. He gets all of Jack Kirby's just complete outline, the art. All he has to do is put the stuff in the thought bubbles. And I'm like, Stan, who made this doc for you, bro? Because this sounds rough. It makes it. You are not skipping on the allegations that people have about Stan Lee being the coaster that a lot of people think he was, in terms of Jack Kirby being the one who had all those ideas. Steve Ditko, who passed away not too long ago, was also brought up a lot with the release of this documentary because, that's the man who really put Spider-Man in the forefront. So but he became a recluse.
So we worry with these profile documentaries a lot. Are they just going to be these like hagiographies, these altars built at the pillar of Stan Lee? You're telling me it's not so much that, at least for part of it.
No. It is. It's saying it proudly, not realizing you're kind of... Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They had a Mickey Mouse one as well, where the Mickey Mouse one was just like, and everyone had to do something during the war. And so we did Mickey Mouse propaganda where Mickey was selling military weapons. And it's like, or you could have just opted not to do anything. They mention things here like it's a boast. And I'm like, I don't think it's the boast you think it is. It makes it sound like somebody else had the creative ideas, which is the story that people think is already out there. It's too short for a man who is known to be who's known to be comics. Honestly, I can't even think of anybody else more synonymous with
the iconic comic book writer.
than Stan Lee. So
Yeah.
look, as a fluff piece, it's very nice. It's enjoyable. They do a really good job of taking a lot of his archives and just digging deep into how young he looked back in the day, personal
Mm.
photos. It is not a bad. What'd you call it? Because I want to
Hagiography.
say, break that one down.
It's like a biography that's meant to sort of like cast people in like the perfect light. They're the best person ever.
That I like documentaries that get into it, and this one does not. But it does kind of by accident. It's out on Disney Plus. Again, not a bad documentary, but I
Yeah.
wanted it to go a little bit deeper, and maybe one day we will
It's
get that Stanley Duck, Stan
it's
Lee Lieber Duck.
there we go. It's directed by David Gelb, who's previously helmed Jiro
Yeah.
Dreams of Sushi. Is there any evidence of that in this one?
Editing wise, yeah,
Okay,
it's snappy. Yeah, no, both
cool.
are very very well cut movies. So yeah, it tracks. Yeah, Jiro's so much better though. But yeah, it's not a bad documentary, but it's definitely not the best profile.
Totally.
You want
And
to cry?
then last week, yeah, I gave a shout out to this one, which is now on Netflix. But have you had a chance to catch Take Care of Maya?
Sadly, and so did my mom. We both got the
Ooh,
screener link before it came out.
yikes.
She came over yesterday, and we just vented about this movie. The
Mhm.
most frustrated documentary that Netflix has released this year, in my opinion, has to be "Take Care of Maya," a movie about. Did they say it here? When when I found out it was John Hopkins, that's crazy to me.
Yeah,
A hospital, specifically this group of doctors, who took away a child and caused so much turmoil for the family. And then 2/3 of the way of the movie, they hit you with this like big bombshell, and I'm like, "Yo, this should have
yeah,
been the first third of the movie."
yeah.
Look, I don't want to spoil the true story because it's also ongoing. But if you're willing to get a lot thrown at you, "Take Care of Maya" is that documentary.
Yeah, it's a very effective and very searing. I almost want to call it true crime, even though it's like
Honestly, yeah, the best
through
thing
the
that they did
yeah
was not handle it that way.
yeah. Did you find it to be emotionally manipulative, or do you just feel like it was like authentic to the story?
I think it can be both. I
Yeah.
think that the story that is happening to a lot of these people is a true story that they feel they need to. That's why I want you to watch that second episode of Black Mirror from the new season because
Mm,
it's about that. How they can tell you in that new Black Mirror episode, someone says something and they're like, actually say it this way. And then they just say it. And Lena looks at me and was like, wait, they could just tell you what to say in a true crime doc and then you will never know the behind the scenes. Bro, there are multiple shots here where it's like, look, there's one cameraman shooting this from different angles. I'm a big stickler when it comes to docs that do that. You know, it kind of like someone surprising somebody and the camera's already inside the house.
right.
It does a lot of that. So yes, it is manipulative, but they also were manipulated. I don't think that
Yeah.
cancels out.
Yeah, I mean, look, their story is like a really compelling and tragic one that deserves to be told. I don't know if this is the best telling of it, or one that takes into account like the full scope of what happened, but just embedding you with this family's trauma and trying to give you the feelings, the awful, unimaginable feelings that they went through. It works at least on that level. So I think it's going to be uh, one that people talk about when if they get a chance to. Netflix is really good at pushing these kinds of documentaries
Yep.
out. I'm curious to see like if there's going to be any interesting responses to this, because I'm sure there are people who like can dive much deeper into the issues that are being presented and come out with a more coherent like this is what needs to change or went
Yeah.
wrong kind of thing.
It's pretty crazy, and I don't know. There may even be a follow up, but yeah, probably one of the biggest Netflix drops that they'll be having at least in this half of the year. We got to see it for Tribeca, but it is now out. So I don't want to say enjoy, but like brace yourselves if you do watch
Yeah.
it. Take Care of Maya. Wrapping this docs up. So our last two, a doc and then a hybrid doc
Yeah.
narrative. Do you have a preference which one you want to start with?
Let's go with Chasing Amy, because I thought this one was
Ooh,
really, really good.
break it down.
So Chasing Amy, as you might be able to infer from the title, is a film about chasing Amy and diving into its iconic and somewhat messy legacy as a film that came out, you know, in the 90s that dealt with LGBTQ issues in a way that a lot of mainstream films didn't, a lot of mainstream comedies didn't. And, you know, it's a film that's significant in a lot of ways because of how it was honest and not punishing in its portrayal of LGBTQ people, but it's also a film that has this messy reputation since it comes from writer-director Kevin Smith, who, as we all know, is not a lesbian. or
On the
or
record,
maybe,
yeah.
But like, you know, I think, you know, it's been an interesting thing to see people and different film writers contend with over the years, because Chasing Amy, I would say it's one of Smith's best films, but it's also this film that for a lot of people was very significant and a significant form of representation, since it came out in a period when that was not the norm for Hollywood or anything like that. It's also like a film that is very much of its time, and we, you know, a lot of people make a lot of weight of talking about old films as problematic, and there certainly are problematic elements to Chasing Amy, but to Chasing Amy rather. But what's so good about Chasing Amy, the documentary, is that it dives headfirst into what those like messy, nuanced areas are. A movie can both be this stunning achievement that is very important and literally life-saving, as they talk about in the documentary, and also have these areas where it failed and where it's connected to sadness and to trauma. And I think Sav Rogers does a really great job of taking a film that I was worried would just kind of be something that exists in the shadow of a film like Chasing Amy, and transcending to actually make like a very compelling story of their own. I thought it was not only great, like maybe the best straight doc that I saw at Tribeca this year, and I think you agree with me.
Out of what I've seen, it's the best Tribeca movie that I caught. Like you were saying, I wasn't sure if this was like a behind the scenes making of the movie, and then I realized it's almost like a fan's perspective of it. And like you handled it well about it is looking back at all of these movies that filmmakers, fans are looking to contend with, because movies have their own life cycles, right? Whatever the movie is about and who the intended audience is for is completely different than who ends up connecting to it. In the past weeks, we talked about the Donna Summer doc, someone who made music to, like, you know, just have sex, but it was the LGBT community who really connected with it. When I was in college, we worked on a movie that was supposed to be about a parent and a child, but it had a pretty gay-centric storyline in terms of coming out to your parent. And like, you either hone in on that and realize who it's really connecting to, or like be stubborn and make it, you know, targeted. You continue targeting it to the people who aren't going to connect with it as well.
Yeah.
Chasing Amy stars I'm doing it as well. Chasing Amy stars Ben Affleck as a dude who wants to sleep with a woman who's a lesbian just because like he feels he can have her, because at one point she was with a man, right?
Right.
The fact that it's breaking down the movie, the making of it, the cultural relevance of the movie, and how it stands now, I think is fascinating with the way that we perceive media today. I don't want to fully connect it to the Idol, but it's almost like the way that people are discussing the Idol at this point in time. And I'm not saying that one's not guilty or not guilty or whatever it is, but the idea of being able to broach subjects in a messy way, in an authentic way. What will the ripple effects be when you sanitize something? Will it have the same connection? Then all of that to the side, it becomes this personal story of this director and how they're connected to the movie, the access that they get to the movie. And then the freaking love story in this movie is, bro, you know, to me that those documentaries are the ones that get me the most. And there are lines that I was telling Zach, I was like, I don't know if this is considered a spoiler, but damn, if they don't release a trailer with that being the final line of the trailer, I don't know what to tell you. I highly, highly recommend this movie. Really good talking heads. Very interesting archives that they pull up with it. And like I said, that story for the director, fantastic. He killed it. Chasing Amy, so far, my favorite of the festival.
You know, there was that Kevin Smith documentary that was at South by a couple of years ago. I think it's available on VOD. Clerk. I almost feel like this is a better Kevin Smith documentary than that Kevin Smith documentary.
Yes, sir. Easily. I don't know the release date of this, but yeah, we'll be mentioning it. Keep
Yeah,
tuned
we'll
on
give it another
Intercut
shout out.
whenever it comes out. However, my most anticipated, right?
Yeah.
I still haven't seen this one yet. A hybrid, almost documentary that, again, I swear to you, this one was at South by. It was
Yeah.
then pulled when South by went hybrid, and I couldn't catch it because they didn't want it online. Zach saw it online. Tell me about Cypher.
Yeah, this is actually the Founders Award winner for Best U.S. Narrative Feature, which
That's all.
surprised me because I
Really?
thought this was a documentary about
Oh,
Tierra Whack until I watched it. It is a really interesting film that, as we mentioned, is kind of hybrid because it begins as this documentary that charts Tierra Whack's rise into the
ooh,
music industry and the name that she's made for herself as this really dynamic, fun rapper with a very unique sense of style and a unique vision. And the movie just does this very interesting thing where it shifts from being this profile documentary into almost like a commentary on the way that people generate conspiracy theories about people in Hollywood and the idea of industry plants and secret societies. It's devolves into like YouTube conspiracy video, but like
wha-
in a way that
okay,
feels really fun. So,
okay.
it's 90 minutes, but it probably feels like a little bit over long to me. Like this would have been like the perfect thing to accompany a Tierra Whack album, is like behind a
Mm,
behind the scenes video type of thing that is a little more intriguing than you're expecting. But I think it ends up being this very compelling look at like fame and our desires to make things bigger in our imagination than they are in reality. Yeah, just sort of like
ooh,
a compelling mystery that you know does that thing where it really rides the line between is this really happening or not, in a fun
really?
way. Yeah, I mean, I it's not necessarily like the most revolutionary hybrid film out there. I think it gets to a certain point where you realize, oh yeah, this is all made up for the film, but the way that they mix it all together is really cool and ends up in a way telling you more about Tierra, that this is what she's more
Ooh,
interested in than
okay.
doing like a traditional music documentary.
Bro, I thought this was really just gonna be her doing a Cypher overbeat.
Yeah. Well, when they get to the double meaning of Cypher, that's when it really opens up.
Oh, and I should know better than that. As if we don't, we're both big fans. Have you had the chance to see her? I got to see her once at Lala. The
Yeah.
energy's insane.
Bro, I saw her at Pitchfork, remember?
Was I there that day? Or did you
Nah,
get to see her?
I think that
I
was
saw her.
the day before you came.
Damn. Then I probably saw her at home.
Yeah,
She's the best. We both highly recommend her.
she's
I
so
mean,
good.
like literally, when I was over at your house, one of the last trips, you just had Tierra. It was like a playlist of Tierra Whack, anything she's ever been in the
Yeah,
back. So dude, this is one of my most anticipated. I am very excited for this.
it's
They're
fun.
making it very difficult to get this one, but it is now online. I highly recommend it. And I haven't even seen it, and I think you recommend it as well because
For
this
sure.
one should be on the at home thing, right?
Yeah, as an
Okay.
award winner, I would expect it to be. Yeah.
Perfect. So that is a lot of our picks from Tribeca in its
Yeah.
first run. A lot of things expired on us as well. There's this thing where it's like we're waiting for links. Then once the links do come through, well, how was I supposed to schedule them in? I don't know if you're going to send it to me. And then you got to deal with like 5 links and you got to pick which ones you got to watch. And then for Zach, he's going to actual places. And then the Flash is still
Yeah.
running in my house because it's so long. So much to handle there. But we will probably have another dispatch. You can keep tuned in over on the site, theatozshow.com, where we're posting a lot of our film festival just stuff. If you can't find it on YouTube for whatever reason, we're trying to make little landing pages for all of our coverage from Sundance, all of our coverage from all the other film festivals. There's so many of them. So be sure to check that out as well. Let us know your recommendations if you're watching at home, if you're in New York, what we should keep an eye out for at Tribeca. But, Zach, before we get into the new to see and the picks for the week, give a shout out to all of the Inner Cutie patrons over on Intercut
Yeah.
Pod.
Let's do it. We want to thank all those wonderful patrons who
Ooh,
are
look at that.
supporting the show. Got a graphic for you this week as well. Feature
Wow.
all the wonderful people who are contributing at least $1 a month to keep this thing going over on
Very sexy.
patreon.com/intercut. Intercut Pod. Big shout out to the Academy level members, to Shar, Cademan, Connor, Josh, May, Ricky, Joe, Janicia, Tyler, and Benji. Some of y'all are in the live stream now, I see. So big shout out to all of y'all. And then, of course, a big thanks to those producer level patrons, Udenvier, Sam,
Nice.
and Wiley. We appreciate all the support so much. And a reminder that you too can support the show for as little as $1 a month by heading over to patreon.com/intercutpod, where you sign up for access to patron benefits like early access to some of our episode outlines, access to our episodes when we record them. You know, we're doing some brackets and some after credits soon that are not going to be streamed live, so you'll get to see those a little bit early. You also can help us decide on the brackets, what movies and actors or whatever should appear on them when we do our monthly patron Google meetings, which are always a fun chance to catch up with y'all and talk movies. We still got one more for June that we have to do, so we'll probably do that next week. I don't know what your schedule's like, Arturo, but
We got a jam-packed Monday before July.
yeah, it's going to be.
Then I'm gonna be on the road for so long. We have a lot to record before summer break. But yeah,
a lot of chances to help us figure out what's going on in this show, and then maybe talk to us too. So not too late to sign up to join our June patron hang next week rather, over on patreon.com/intercut pod.
Beautiful. Let's talk about what's new for this week, starting off with they flopped at the box office, but I guess, you know, when you hide it at home, there's really the numbers are whatever you want it to be, right?
Yeah.
Hey, everyone's an alien now, and hey, the numbers are breaking records every single. Do you see the Hot Cheeto movie? Biggest movie since the last biggest movie?
Oh yeah, always breaking records whenever there's a new streaming movie. We won't tell you what records are being broken, but they broke them.
But they broke them. Another Hot Cheeto lie. Secret Invasion is honestly Captain Marvel 2. The previous eons, damn near a recap. It's an LME of just Captain Marvel, and then they begin it. I got the first 2 episodes, and a lot of people are coming out going, "Yo, this is crazy. This is awesome." Look, they already got me with Moonwalker, Moon Knight, and I came out of that really enjoying the first 2.
Yeah.
The nosedive on that series was so bad. Nah, bro, I'm holding out on this. They make some very interesting choices. If you're a big fan of Civil War, this is feeling a lot like Civil War. That spy espionage thing. If you're a person who thinks that Civil War is a spy espionage thing just for Marvel fans, then this is not going to change it for you either.
Yeah.
It is very, very heavy centric on Samuel L. Jackson. A lot of reveals, a lot of explosive things. Zach, this has to be the most heavy-handed show they've ever done.
Oh, no.
It is ridiculous. I'll put it to you this way. There is, I don't even know who's the president, a politician that is a mix of Reagan and Nixon's name put together, and they just think we're not going to notice that. I'm going to leave it right there. For those who are excited, go ahead. It looks pretty good. The prosthetics for the Skrulls are fine. We'll talk about it more when Zach gets a chance to see it. It's at least the type that's more story-centric that I think you'd like more. But bro, I
wanted to ask.
They really cast this man to play Malcolm X Skrull. I can't even believe it.
Oh, no.
I can't even believe it.
Oh, no.
It is ridiculous. They are not slick in the slightest. And I'm going to save it for next week. Wait till you hear some of the dialogue in the show that we're just going to pretend like whatever they did in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where they were just talking about our world and nothing having to do with the Marvel world.
Right.
Boy, are they on that again. He's great. He looks fantastic. That's awesome. I'm glad he got his check.
Yeah.
Damn, they're just cosplaying. They're just cosplaying real life events, and that's weird to me.
Are there any of the new actors like fun to see? You know, it's Olivia Colman, it's Emilia Clarke, Kingsley Benadir,
Ben Mendelsohn back. It's awesome to see the stat cast. It'll be awesome to see if they do more with them. So I'll just leave it there. But yeah, Don Cheadle, another Emmy nomination for sure. If you do have FX, Hulu, Disney, all that good stuff, I'm going to start the recommendations here with the bear.
Go.
I did not know that we had a National Italian Beef Day, and I almost snatched the poster, bro. Al's Beef hosts National Italian Beef Day, and Sorry, Bona Beef does, bro. There's beef. There's actual beef going on in Chicago. No one has ever celebrated this day. But 3 weeks ago, because Bona Beef always does it, in order to like drive people to download their app, Al's Beef put together an event sponsored by the Bear in order to just compete with Bona Beef. These are two big beef places. Mr. Beef, where the show actually films, they ain't do anything. For National Italian Beef Day, they didn't do a damn thing. But these two started going at each other just because they wanted to one up each other. And we went to the event, and like Mr. Al Beef himself, they told him, it's like, so how'd you hear about this day? He's like, I really didn't know anything about this until they brought me in here. Most Chicago dude possible. Clearly they cut him the check, and he was just like, hey, promo's promo, screw Bona Beef. But I'm gonna have to give it to Bona that day. They had the better beef that day. But hey, Mr. Beef, Zach came over. He tried it from the source itself. They're going different though. It's looking to be a completely new take on not the fast food that we saw from the first season, but getting into that like almost Michelin star menu that he's been trying to build up for what the restaurant is now called, which is the Bear. So I am very excited for this. It's all dropping at the same time. I complained about it, but Zach reminded me. They did the same thing with the first season, so
but do you think they should have graduated out of that? I mean, it's a hit.
Yes.
Like people are excited for it.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. Everybody knows the Bear is great. Definitely keep your eyes peeled for it. I'm eating it all up in one day. I'm a Virgo. I don't know if you got to finish this yet. They sent us the screeners.
No, I've been watching a little bit more of it, and I'm just like relentlessly impressed with how creative and just like oozing with ideas it is. Even if it's like a messy show, it's just so inventive and fun.
The new Boots Riley. It's going to be a miniseries about a young black boy who's a giant, and as he grows up, he's kind of like hiding away from the world until he starts hanging out with this group of people that kind of maybe put him in more trouble than he should be. I'll leave it at that. Dude, it's Boots Riley. I am all in. My only thing is like I want to watch it in full quality because it's on the screeners app for Prime. I don't want to watch it in 720p. I want to watch it in its full glory. So I can recommend the first 2 episodes highly, highly, highly. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's the kind of show where one of the things they do, because he's 13 foot tall, is they build him this specific house, and his door is made up of 4 other doors. And if you like little like production design details like that, you're going to have a blast watching it.
Yes. We'll talk more. That's perfect. Yeah, there's a whole behind the scenes about how they made it. I love it. It's everything you want. There's also a movie that I did see as a matinee, so it's going to be perfect as a stream it because I think I ended up landing on a rent it. Chevalier. It is out on Hulu. Like this thing came out on VOD straight to streaming as well. It is the movie, The Untold Story of Chevalier. I'm not French, but the Black Mozart is pretty much how they pitch him, and about his story that was kind of thrown to the wayside because he was, too talented for a lot of people, and they wanted to lose him in the history books. Scott our boy in it. Calvin Harrison is always doing a great job in all the movies that he's in. But it does end up being more of a protest piece for today than an actual story for its time, which is weird to say because obviously, the French are always protesting. But once you see the movie, you'll see what I mean, where instead of ending it on a character point, they ended it on like a message for the audience at home instead. And I don't know. There'll be several more Chevalier products probably coming out, movies, docs, because they're uncovering more and more about this man. And how talented he was. So I think you caught this one.
No, I didn't get a chance to. I'm really intrigued too, but I'm definitely going to catch it this week. So I'll come back with more thoughts on the movie next week.
Sounds good. All right. I added this to my list. That should tell you already like how much I was looking forward to it. I think both you and I think this man is really funny, even when he's not funny. There's an energy that John Early has.
Yeah.
Bro, I know you're a fan of what's his partner in crime? They did that other one together. I did not like
Kate Berlant.
You went to go see it live. I know you really liked it. I love the special that they did together.
Yeah.
To me, that is the funniest thing these two have worked on. And his sketch on Tim Robinson, where you want to pay for the check. If you have not seen that one, go do yourself a favor, watch that.
Would It Kill You to Laugh is the special they had on Peacock, by the way.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning it. I want to pull that up over here because that one is so awkwardly funny. It is one of the best things that's out there.
You just scrolled past it.
Oh, did I? Let me know. Oh,
there you go.
Yes. This is... I got to revisit this one, bro. This is so
really
funny. I put this one already on the recommended, and look, my first watch of it, I finished it this morning. It's good. Still putting it on my recommended because I got to just recommend you the two that I really enjoyed. But I don't know if you caught this. It's his stand-up slash musical
Mhm.
performance.
Yeah, I haven't caught it yet, but I'm like you excited to because he's just got an energy to him that even if all the jokes aren't necessarily hitting, like it's just fun to see the
Yes.
energy and the momentum that he carries. I think a lot of what he does is sort of improvised and felt out in the moment. Both he and Kate Berlant do a lot of that,
Yes,
but
they do.
they're just like they're snappy and clever enough and just a joy to watch that I don't think it like gets old.
They also just fall. Like there are some actors who do a fake fall.
They're both very good physical performers.
This man will hurt himself.
Yeah.
So definitely check it out, and definitely check out the special that I had recommended past that. It's also a Tribeca pick. I don't know if you know this. They
Yeah.
denied us. They denied us the link. So I was like,
Hmm.
I guess I'll have to wait 3 days.
Right.
But
Oh
hey,
no.
still gets the recommendation from me. And then if you are going to theaters, they do have a comedy with Jennifer Lawrence out this weekend. But hey, if you can catch the Blackening, it is definitely worth going to support because they have some really killer jokes. I am surprised with how much Lionsgate allowed in this movie, for being completely honest. Definitely check out the short on YouTube. It's free. If that interests you, then I think you will enjoy the movie. Is that, or if you had
Yeah.
another Blackening thought, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add that, it did make $6 million in its opening weekend, which, that's not
Bad?
Marvel money, but it's not too
No.
bad it didn't get like a whole lot of marketing. I think I just looked up the budget's around 7 million. So it'll make that back.
Whoa. Very nice.
So yeah, I mean,
Blackening 2.
comedies in movie theaters. Who thought? Who'd have thunk it? Yeah.
I hope it gets legs.
All right. Not a lot of comedies in theaters, although oddly, this is a big comedy in theaters moment with Blackening and No Hard Feelings. My comedy recommendation are a pair of shows that are on Max or HBO or whatever you want to call it. Let's start with The Righteous Gemstones, which is returning for its third
Wow.
hilarious season. I got into this show late. I actually got into it late last year.
I remember.
Just sort of just decided to binge it one day and just completely got swept away by how funny and how irreverent it is. Danny McBride is very, very good at doing this thing where the like the man-child thing in a way that's beyond just like, oh, you're so immature. Like there's like a smartness to how stupid they are, like a motivated quality that you see through the family dynamics. He's not just being stupid to act stupid. He's being stupid because this is how you've seen his character raised and treated and allowed to act. But there's also like this compelling drama that they are able to weave into Righteous Gemstones every year. Like I find myself surprised by how invested I get into the story, and this year specifically seems like it's going to be in some ways reminiscent of Succession as they decide which sibling is going to ascend to the top of the church that their father runs. But
I was going to call it Catholic Succession.
exactly, Catholic Succession. I mean, look, John Goodman, an absolute American treasure that does not get as much love as he deserves. Hilarious on the show.
For his humor, yeah, it's underrated.
Very underrated. Already talked about Danny McBride. Adam Devine, this is like the right mold for him. I like when he can be this kind of shithead, vulgar man-child. So he's very fun. But the one who really blows me away every week is Edie Patterson, playing their sister Judy Gemstone. They just give her some of the most ridiculous lines, and her reading is hilarious consistently. I find her to be so funny. So yeah, I mean, I hope people try and catch up with Righteous Gemstones. It took me like a couple tries to just figure out what the show is going for, and once I got the tone, it's become one of my favorite comedies on TV.
It's what was the one that's on Peacock? We caught it at Sundance. It's based off the short.
Oh,
it's also about a church in Atlanta.
Yeah,
Twin
honk if
sisters.
you're honk for Jesus.
Honk
What
for
is it?
Jesus.
Oh,
Yeah, honk for Jesus.
save your
So
soul.
honk for
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, it's honk for Jesus, save your soul. That one's really effective if you've ever been to a church. The parody in this is so uncomfortable because, yeah, it was so on the nose for it. I do need to jump back into it. When it
Yeah.
started and I caught it, I was like, this is a little too on point. They're hitting it on the nail. So,
Yeah.
thumbs up on that. I've only seen the first season and then the vomit scene.
Oh,
Season
man.
2.
Season 2 is so good. Jason Schwartzman plays a reporter named Thaniel. But if that's not enough laughs for you, you can stay on Max and watch the other two, which we find the world has finally caught up to the screeners we were sent, and I finally have a new episode to talk about, and what an episode it was, because the whole bit about Chase Dreams doing a night for mental health awareness is like everything I've been wanting to say about the way mental health gets treated, particularly in celebrity circles, but they do it so much funnier. The whole bit of like insert whatever name of whatever Parkland survivor is like one of the craziest.
I have not seen the last episode, bro.
It's one of the craziest jokes they've come up with. It's just so searing and so precise. They really have such an eye for cutting the culture. I don't know, man. I think they're working on a level that's the tops for this type of commentary. It's just so smart and so funny. It got another wave of attention because of the whole elemental. Like, there's a voice actor who said that they are the first. Yeah, great for them. Announced that they are voicing the first non-binary character in a Pixar film. A character who I don't think any of us knew existed at all.
Blink and you miss. Yeah, a whole whopping one line.
Not dissimilar from the Globby storyline that took place earlier this season on the other two.
Instant classic.
And it's the week after they announced the Bambi movie from Sarah Polley, another plot line that was on the other two, that they were doing a Bambi live action remake. Like, they're just the other two is like forecasting things that are happening in the culture.
Yeah.
Every week now speaks to how amazing the show is and how great the writing is.
Zach, I think that the third season is not only their best season.
Yes.
In terms of everything that HBO has released this year, Zach. Zach, I think it's better than Succession if I were to be putting my favorite HBO stuff. Max, you make me a Max list, make me an HBO list, bro. I have thought about it. I have been wanting to say this to you since I finished the screeners for that, and now that it's fully wrapped up, I am presenting it to you. I truly believe that this is one of the best things that HBO has released, and I think it's the best thing that they released this year.
I
stand by it.
I'm not gonna fully agree, but I am going to agree that it is like one of the best TV shows of this year. It is better than a lot of the shows that you consider like to be the elite of prestige TV, and it just does not get that recognition. And again, like I totally agree that the third season, they've upped their game yet again. If this show does not stick around for a couple more years, it will be a tragedy.
2 thumbs up, and if I had a globby finger, I'd also do that as well.
Is Carrie Dubeck the worst person on TV right now? Like, for a while it was like Walter White or somebody, but now I think it's Carrie.
You know, there are a lot of shows that try to mimic that, the idea of being a terrible person, and it's like they just come off annoying. They've nailed it. They're such despicable people to the people around them and to the people closest to them. So they fire on all cylinders. And again, I hate that because it's a comedy first, unlike Succession being a drama that people find funny. I think it gets underlooked a lot, but it is operating on a level that they just knocked it out of the park, man.
It's so good. I'm so glad that you're loving it too.
It's great.
Okay, a couple films that I'll recommend. Armageddon Time, apparently available on Prime this week, and
Peacock, they lose it all the time. We had the discussion.
Yeah, it's weird the way that these companies are just like letting their license to these films slip. Like, it's, I like wanted to rewatch the first Spider-Verse movie before watching the new one, and it's just like, which you're playing like whack-a-mole with streaming services. It's like, I knew I saw it on Prime at one point. It definitely lived on Netflix for like a year. I don't know.
Physical media, baby.
Yeah, it definitely helps for sure. But Armageddon Time, if you haven't caught up with a movie that I found very profound, and a movie that maybe is helpful to like sit at home where you can really like ponder it, I'd give that a recommendation. Plus, we were just talking about Succession. Jeremy Strong, incredible performance in Armageddon Time,
Yes,
and
he
a
is.
very different character to Kendall Roy. So if for nothing else but that, I give it a recommendation. But then I
Plus
want to talk
Prime.
about
Prime's the bigger P service, I would say, that people have.
yeah, of all the P services, I'd say Prime is the best one.
But speaking of the best P movie,
There we
starting
go.
with a P,
Like
let's
to tie in?
go, dude.
Past Lives, it expands into wider release this weekend. So if you've been waiting for it somewhere in the US, hopefully it makes its way to you this week. You know, it's been getting excellent reviews. I feel like people are just sort of echoing the things that we felt when we saw this one at Sundance, that is like
It
one
hits.
of the best films about kind of like unrequited love and diverging paths. You know, there's all these movies coming out now that are multiversal storytelling that sort of hint at like the different
Thank
ways your
you.
life could have
Yes.
gone. This movie
Talk
does
about
that
it.
better and in a much simpler package. It is
No chronosphere.
unbelievably gorgeous. Yeah.
Yes. No flash speed force. None of that. No webs.
Exactly.
Oh my
Doesn't-
goodness.
It doesn't need it. It just needs Celine Song's devastating dialogue. You know, it's honestly just one of the most beautiful films I've seen in quite some time. Articulates an idea that I feel like lots of us feel and think about, but I don't know if I've quite seen it portrayed in movies this way.
Yeah.
Basically, like if you loved that line from Everything Everywhere All at Once, in another lifetime, I'd like to do laundry, just like to do laundry and taxes with you. You're gonna
The movie.
flip for seeing this movie. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts, and I wasn't even expecting it, right? Because there's sometimes we watch these movies, we get to see them early, we don't know how they're going to sit with audiences, but when something's great, it's great. And you just wonder if a patient movie like this will sit with mass audiences, right? Now that it's rolling out. Bro, I was not expecting, right? Like you're mentioning this past lives concept that is a really big Asian, you know, I don't want to say mythology, but a way that they look at their world.
Yeah.
The fact that you're getting all these people, like Americans, watching it going, damn, in my past lives. They're doing like Drake quotes after watching this A24 movie, and I was not expecting it to hit general audiences like that.
Yeah.
But we both said, it sneaks up on you, and I'm just so happy. Look at that. Look at that score. The people have spoken.
That's
Hell
a
yeah.
crazy letterbox
Hell yeah.
graph. Yeah.
You know, I've been asking what do people want to see an LME on, and they're like, you need to explain why the heck this is so high. And I'm like, I can, but I feel I can't do it better. There are just some movies where the movie tells it all to you. Just go watch it, go experience it. Hopefully it's playing near you. Go watch it at whatever your the AMC is, go watch it there.
Oh yeah, and then I guess I have one more pick for the week.
You had such a good pick. How could you
Damn, I did go to the AMC to catch this one. Asteroid City. I completely biffed your transition there, but yeah, man, we got new Wes Anderson in the world. That's always a reason to celebrate. And
Yep.
I've talked about how the last couple Wes Anderson films didn't really hit for me in the same way. I didn't hate. I just thought they were okay. I'm so happy to say I'm back in, baby. We are back. Asteroid City is unbelievable.
Whoa, hey, take it easy.
Look, we know that a Wes Anderson movie is going to be like one of the most meticulously crafted works of art that you've ever seen. Like obviously the way it's shot, the way it's production designed, all the elements that are thrown in visually are pristine and beautiful, like picture book-esque, right? But there's like an emotional layer that I felt like I was missing, at least from the last couple films, that I completely connected with here. These idea of these characters who are carrying around this hurt but don't really want to address it, and they fill their lives with these other things instead of it. And then when they're trapped within this city, how a lot of it sort of comes out. Not only that, but there's like a meta layer to the film that I don't really want to talk about because it's not really in a lot of the trailers.
I've gotten whiffs of it. Yes,
it's really good and really like just so dynamic in a way that like only a talent like Wes Anderson can do. The way this film moves from sequence to sequence is so impressive and beguiling. And you know, it's not a movie that I feel like is that easy to wrap your head around or that easy to like get a firm conclusion on. There's sort of questions that you might be lingered with. But I love seeing Wes Anderson in this mode because not only like I like seeing the kind of interpersonal family dynamics and the more emotional vulnerability that he sometimes can imbue in his characters, but he's also expanding kind of like what even is a Wes Anderson film. There's sort of sci-fi otherworldly elements to this film too. It's just so exciting as from a filmmaker that I love to see him not only do what he does excellently, but do some new things too. Yes, I'm really, really hyping this film up a lot. I'm not going to say that this is like top 3 Wes Anderson for me. It's not like
top 5.
It might be top 5, man. It's definitely my favorite since Moonrise, and it's kind of like similar level to me for that.
There are screenings at Regal's tomorrow that are supposed to be advanced for those who aren't going to get it until later on this week. So keep an eye out for that, especially for people who may not be getting it that soon. Amanda talked about it. You're gushing about it. I have several screenings this week. I just want to see it in the best possible screen. I'm excited for it. You think you'll catch it again?
I'm 100% catching it again. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, that is everything for this week in movies. Going back on our picks for the week. Look, you can stay at home. You can go out in theaters. There is so much good stuff. Pick yourself up an Italian beef if you've never had one and watch season 2 of The Bear over on FX, Hulu, over on Prime. They're going to be doing I'm a Virgo, which, hey, I'm a big Boots Riley fan. I just love his imagination. They let the man cook for this one.
Creativity out the ass.
Easily. I'm very curious to know your thoughts on this one because not a lot of people saw this in theaters, but hey, it's out at home, and many times that's the best way that they can get eyes on it. Chevalier, however you say it. John Early, now more than ever, but more than that. I'm just gonna say it. You gotta go watch this one. We recommended it last time. Would it kill you to laugh? Over on Peacock until it ends up on Prime. Definitely a standout. They're just so funny. The next one that I have here is The Blackening. In case you are going out to theaters, it seems like we're in the comedy side of things for the next 2 weeks before Indiana Jones comes back, which I caught. Zach is seeing this weekend, so we will have a full review for that, or our first thoughts on that next week. Nice. But those are my picks. Zach has...
The Righteous Gemstones returning for season 3. Danny McBride includes some of the funniest actors on TV. But I think the show that I find to be the funniest on TV right now is my other recommendation from Max.
Standing by it.
Other two. Look, it is amazing, and it's easily like the most underrated show happening right now because people should be talking about this every week. They're starting to.
Thank you. Yes, they started to. So I love that.
And another reason why that weekly model I think helps because I feel like it's been building the momentum too for a show like that.
Exactly.
Yep. Armageddon Time, one of my favorite films from last year, now available to Amazon Prime users. You can check that out there. But the best 2 films in theaters right now, I honestly don't think it's even a question. Oh, wait, no, shoot. There's actually a lot of good films in theaters right now with Spider-Verse and You Hurt My Feelings. But you know what? These are probably still my 2 favorite films in theaters right now. The beautiful, wonderful, touching Past Lives from director Celine Song and Studio A24. And then, of course, Wes Anderson returning with the immaculately crafted Asteroid City. I'm really excited to hear your reaction to that one, too.
I need it. Well... That's everything for this week's show. What a jam-packed summer we are having. It is good to be a movie fan. It's insane. Zach, do you remember when it died? Cinema? 3 years ago? When it was over? Well,
nobody's going back to theaters anymore, I heard.
Hey, movies are back. The movies are here, and we got a lot to cover. So for this week's show, that's all that we have. But Zach, where can people find more from you?
You can catch me on Twitter or Letterboxd or Instagram at ZShevic, Z-S-H-E-V as in Virgo, I-C-H, and check out my YouTube or TikTok channels at Multiplex Show. We just posted a video about which actor has been in the most Wes Anderson movies. I feel like most people know the answer, but there's some little interesting touches in there. So yeah, give it a watch. How about you, Art?
You can find me over at LME Movies on all the social medias. And Devesh says I need to go to London because they got an Asteroid City exhibition. Look, I've never been to one of those when they post up right before his movies, but I can't imagine being on a set, a replica of a Wes Anderson movie. because people already go to it talking about how much the production design stands out. I would love to live in one of his worlds. They need a theme park right for this man. So Scorsese's line can come full circle. Other than that, a reminder that you can listen to every episode of the Intercut podcast here on Intercut. You can listen over on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, whatever your favorite podcatcher is. You can catch the live video here on YouTube. A big shout out to all of the Intercuties. Thank you again. Zach still has the bit right here. A shout out to all of the Intercutie patrons over on the Intercut podcast. Like Zach said, we're going to be doing a couple of other brackets, other outlines for a lot of the stuff that we need to film leading into the summer, because it's going to be nothing but back-to-back movies. A big shout out to everyone who listens live, all the iTunes listeners who leave us 5-star reviews. We really appreciate that. Other than that, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to all of the socials of Horror Intercut Pod. And until next time, keep watching movies, and we'll return with a part 2, just like all these 2023 movies.
Into the Intercut verse.
I like that.